I'm going to make the point, though, that, that data ethics and data protection and privacy and security and so on go back a really long way. Big data is just causing new problems in a space of which we've been thinking in for a long time. You only have to think about data protection laws and so on. There's all kinds of laws been going on around official statistics and public administration data for a really long time, and around data markets and so on. And a lot of what I think is going on here is I appreciate all the issues around harassment and so on, but actually a lot of it is just actually about routine, everyday collection of data that we don't really think about in a lot of ways, that are then used to kind of socially sort us and profile us and make decisions about us without us necessarily knowing what's going on. I'm particularly interested in big data and smart cities, and I'm interested in the data that's kind of flowing around within cities. And there's now a diverse range of public and private entities that are generating huge quantities of fine-scaled, uniquely identifiable information across a whole series of entities, from utility companies to transport providers to environmental agencies to mobile phones and all the apps on the phones, through to travel and accommodation sites, social media sites, financial institutions, retail companies, private surveillance and security firms, emergency services, home appliances, entertainment systems, and so on. So we have a huge amount of kind of often real-time, finely grained, uniquely indexable information being produced about us. So this is the kind of the data deluge, and how that data can then be kind of combined, how it can be analyzed, and how it can be acted on. I think what's partly happening within the big data space is data minimization. One of the key founding principles of the Fair Information Principles has gone out the window, and it's a kind of a free-for-all on how much of this data we can extract. Okay, so this is the information that your Uber Android app can potentially pull off of your phone. This is an open, if you like, your phone is effectively open. So they can pull off your email log, your phone log, what apps you've got on your phone, your battery life, the temperature of your battery. I don't know why Uber would need to know that information. Seems completely irrelevant to me to be able to run a taxi company to know most of this information, actually. What telephone masts I've been connecting to, what malware I might have on my phone, so on and so forth, all the way through. There's a huge amount of information that can scrape off the phone. If you've got a location-based app on your phone, it's typically telling whichever app user that is where you are about every 4 minutes. This is fine-grained detail tracking you around the city. There's also sensors on bins and on lampposts and all other kinds of things that can read your MAC address and follow you around the city as well. But I also want to kind of point out that kind of the ethics and politics of data is way more than just kind of privacy and security that it's often boiled down to. This is quite a large multi-dimensional field. Issues around data ownership and data control, issues around data integration, being able to merge data together to see new patterns, also new data markets, so the ability to kind of sell and share and lease data to produce new derived data and new products and so on. Issues around data protection and privacy, issues around data quality and data provenance, the lineage around the data and so on. Issues around data valence and surveillance, so data valence is actually using the data to survey people and so on. All the issues around how the data is then used to socially sort people. So socially sorting people is using the data to make a decision about whether you get the job, or whether you get the loan, or whether you get the mortgage, or whether you get whatever it is, okay? And then, of course, there are issues around kind of technical data concerns and ethics, in terms of things like data coverage and access, in terms of data quality and provenance. So things like the veracity, so the accuracy and the fidelity, the uncertainty, the error, the bias, the calibration, the lineage. We don't know those kinds of things, and then we're socially sorting people and making judgments and profiling people, and people have consequences out of those. Then there are kind of issues. So how do we kind of think about this kind of stuff in relation to ethics? And clearly there's all kinds of ecological fallacies and interpretation issues that can come off the data. People making wrong interpretations or coming to wrong judgments based on the data. Okay, so Magna Carta. So, you know, the idea is a kind of a Bill of Rights concerning data, general set of principles, assume it's a voluntary code. So there's a question there of what happens with people who don't want to do the voluntary code, what happens with people who don't want to do the data minimization, what happens when people don't sign up. So that kind of creates a kind of set of questions. How do we actually legislate around this? So how do we produce our standards and our protocols and our regulation and our legislation. So the Magna Carta can kind of guide that, but they're still going to have to work out in practice how these things are going to work on the ground and within particular domains. And I think what's going to happen as you develop out the Magna Carta is it's really going to become this kind of exercise in negotiating the politics of data and this kind of philosophy of ethics. And it's about trying to negotiate through that. And so I think it's going to be a really worthwhile exercise to do, but it's not going to be the panacea for solving all the issues.